Hello Yu-Gi-Oh players and welcome to Yu-Gi-Oh! Business Casual. I am your host, the RJB0. So I absolutely loved ARGCS Richmond because it was a Dragon Ruler format. And I love Dragon Rulers. Y'all can hate on Dragon Rulers as much as you want, but it is one of my favorite decks of all time, minus the baby dragons. Those cards should never have existed. But I like Dragon Rulers and I liked ARGCS Richmond. It was a really exciting event, especially if you enjoy Dragon Ruler mirror matches and things like that. And the top two were Dragon Ruler players, and it was an excellent pair. So I want to break down these two Dragon Ruler decks and show you guys why Dragon Rulers are so good in the post-Dragons of Legend format. I've got Hoban's and Lolly's Dragon Ruler decks. I'm going to break down each one of them. Mostly I'm just going to talk about the differences between the two, which in all reality mostly break down to ratios on which dragons they run over which ones, how many of each dragon. It's a very marginal style thing. And then the really big difference is that where Lisgathe or Lolly or whatever you want to call him ran Card Troopers, Hoban ran Curry Bandit. And overall, I actually liked Hoban's build better, mostly because of Curry Bandit, because I absolutely do not like Card Trooper. I find myself, especially in a deck where spells are as critical as they are in Dragon Rulers, I always find myself milling the spells that I need as opposed to Dragon Monsters, since you don't actually run a huge number of dragons in the deck. So I like Curry Bandit because it allows you to dig down for your good spell cards, and it also has the potential to put more dragons in the grave. Then, of course, you have the Dragon Rulers, fairly obligatory. And here's one of the big decisions that's different between Lisgathe and Hoban, is that Hoban ran the 1 white stone and the 1 blue eyes, whereas Lisgathe ran the double white stone and the double blue eyes. So the 1 white stone, 1 blue eyes kind of makes sense. You don't want to run into double blue eyes. You don't want to get dead white stones. So you want to be able to put that white stone in the graveyard for blue eyes to get your free Dragon Ruler summon off of what's it called? This thing, Dragon Shrine. I would rather be able to do that than have the possibility of drawing into dead cards. So that's one of the reasons why I like Hoban's build better. Then we go on to the obligatory Debris Dragon. Then you've got the double Flamvell Guard, and this is interesting. He ran 1 Mythic Tree Dragon and 2 Mythic Water Dragons. Mythic Water Dragon and Mythic Tree Dragon were not as popular in the Dragon Ruler decks at this event. They usually only ran one of each of them, or 1 of one and then 2 of the other. And in this case, Patrick Hoban ran the 1 and 2. Because the Water Dragon is live for trade-in. It's also live if you have Scrap Dragon on the board. So it's actually a really powerful card. I'd say more so than Tree Dragon. It isn't weak to Veiler or Skill Drain or things like that. So you're less likely to run into problems with the Mythic Water Dragon than if you ran the double Mythic Tree Dragon. Then, of course, the main deck, Triple Maxi, is huge, like I talked about in the Ghost Trick deck. Against this format, because Soul Charge is a big deal, and if you can stop them going through their Soul Charge, then you can recover the field, and that is a big deal. So then let's move on to the spell lineup. Of course, you have the digging cards. You've got the Gold Sarka, the Foolish Burial, the triple other Foolish Burial, and because it's Hoban, you've got the Upstart Goblin, and then double Trade-In and double Cards of Consonance. I talked about this when I made my Dragon Ruler deck. I don't like Cards of Consonance that much because I would rather have my tuners than my level 8 monsters in my hand. So whereas Cards of Consonance requires you to discard a card that's almost always going to be live because the tuners always have a way of going into them as long as you have a way to put Dragon Rulers on the board. Whereas the level 8s like Blue Eyes or Mythic Water Dragon aren't necessarily going to be as live as often. So I'd rather see a trade-in than a Cards of Consonance the majority of the time. And once again, since you're going to be milling a lot of cards, it makes sense to have 2 of each of them, since you can grab one of them with Curry Bandit if you happen to mill the other. Then you've got another Digger card, Sacred Sword of 7 stars. It is not necessarily something I would run, but considering the fact he has so many ways of putting the Burial into his hand, it works. It also allows you to dig deeper for the triple Soul Charge. Now, this is the big thing for this deck. This is what made this deck be a thing. Because the power of this deck is that you could go for a Dragon Ruler play, And then if that fails, like if you're trying to go for game, if that fails and you know you can't go for game, you can then use Soul Charge to get more extra deck plays on the board, basically free of charge. I mean, the life point cost is no biggie for a Dragon Ruler deck, and the Soul Charge just can make amazing fields. We saw Soul Charge put double Dragasac tokens on the board. We've seen Soul Charge put Giant Grinder and Heliopolis on the board, so Soul Charge is huge, and this is probably the deck that could take advantage of it the best. Then you've got the triple Phoenix Wing Wind Blast. This is for his anticipation of the really big play of this event, which was Vanity's Emptiness plus Stardust Spark Dragon. If you put those two together, it is a crazy tough field to get around, unless, of course, you have the triple Phoenix Wing Wind Blast in your deck. So that is a freaking amazing card. I would have run the triple Wing Blast if it were me too. I might have, you know, depending on how the meta was looking for the event, I might have used a Skill Drain instead of one of the Wing Blasts or something like that, but the triple Wing Blast, when taking on the Dragon Ruler mirror match, is the best choice. You've just got the Torrential and the Compulsory. Compulsory won him the finals, basically, because of how easy it was for him to take Stardust Spark Dragon off the board. The extra deck is fairly self-explanatory. You've got your level 8s, you've got your Azurize, because you can put the Blue Eyes combo on the board really easily in this deck. It is crazy easy because of the Soul Charge, and if you can put Azurize on the board and then be able to get free summons off that Blue Eyes with the Azurize, oh man, crazy plays for days. So Soul Charge plus Azurize is a really good combo to have available. And then, of course, the Star Eater for the classic Debris Dragon into Star Eater and a level 8 play that you can make. Then you've got Draglon, which allows him, in the mirror match, to take control of opponent's monsters, which is amazing. It also allows him to get a free summon off of a dragon monster, so that's pretty good. This Gaia Dragon is really good for the mirror match once again, because Dragasac tokens. Soul Charge really puts life points on the lowdown, and this card basically allows you to win the game without having to get over the Dragasac just by running into one of the tokens. So that's a really big deal. Then you've got the Giant Grinder, which once again won him a game. Gets you out of some tough situation. It also deals some damage. It's a Gaga Cowboy plus, essentially. And then you've got the Heliopolis, of course, Felgrand, Big Eye, and Dragasax. The side deck I also found really interesting. Let's take a look at it. So you've got the double Metaion the Time Lord. He said that he was really good against the mirror match. Once again, just another way to get Stardust Spark Dragon plus Vanity's Emptiness off the board. This could also wreck Soul Charge plays. So this card is amazing for this deck, not to mention the fact that it is a fire for blaster plays. Then you've got Swift Scarecrow, once again, against OTK decks. This is really good because you can draw into it with the Maxi, and of course you have to have the 3 MST somewhere. If you don't have it in the main deck, put it in the side deck. Double Xyz Encore in case he takes on the Evil Swarm matchup, and then of course you have the double Black Horn because this is the best trap card of the format, being able to take Xyz monsters off the board before they can make their plays, which is critical when your opponent could put Exciton Knight on the board. Bottomless, I don't know. I don't know why he would put Bottomless in the side deck if he isn't putting it in the main deck. With cards like Bottomless, I usually have a rule for myself, or if it isn't worthy of the main deck, then I'm probably not going to side it ever as well. But that seemed to have worked for him, so I guess I cannot complain. And then, of course, you got to have the Skill Drains in a Dragon Ruler deck, and the double Vanity's Emptiness for the mirror match, and for the other decks that are likely to put a Soul Charge on the board. Let's look at Lisgathe's deck for a minute, just to check out some of the differences. So once again, one of the big differences right up front is the double Blue Eyes, double White Stone of Legend. I imagine he's just trying to make Cards of Consonance more live. He can also get more plays in with the Dragon Shrine if you put a Blue Eyes in the grave and then put a White Stone in the grave and then use the White Stone to get Blue Eyes. Makes Trade-in more live. It was just a choice thing. What I'm looking at with Lisgathe's deck is that this one was not made for the mirror match. This was made for a much more diverse format. Since you see that he's got the Skill Drains in the main deck, he's got his, let's see, there was something in the extra deck that, oh yeah, he doesn't have the Gaia Dragon in the extra deck, which is something that you would want to have against the mirror match. There are just a lot of indications that this guy was not looking for the mirror match, and that did get him to the finals, but when it came to the finals, when he had to face the mirror match, the Main deck skill drains really came back to bite him in the butt, and the fact that his side deck is not really meant for the mirror match, and we'll get to that in a second, also came back to get him. So one of the things you'll notice is that he's really not designing this deck toward the mirror match. Then of course you've got the Mythic Tree Dragon, Mythic Water Dragon, has to be in the deck. He's one of the guys who only ran 1 and 1. You know, that's personal preference. I like at least 1 and 2, but that's because I really like the Mythic Ruler plays. But if you've just got the 1 and 1, you can still make plays with Soul Charge. I think that's kind of the logic here. You don't want those cards to clog, but they can still be live even if they're in the grave for Soul Charge. So then you've got the Debris Dragon, Influence Dragon, Flamvel Guards, Double Card Trooper. I don't like Card Trooper, as I said before. This allows him to go into Black Rose, though, which is a really big deal. And it's also an Earth target for Redox, which Curry Bandit is not. But I'm not a big Card Trooper fan. It's something that can get run over with a Crimson Blader. I don't know. I'm just not big on it. But that is a decent card to be running in this deck, and it's something that's fairly often seen in the Dragon Ruler deck. Then, of course, you've got the Burial from a Different Dimension, double Cards of Consonance with the double trade-in, triple Dragon Shrine with the Foolish. Foolish was never a thing before Soul Charge came out, but it really does set up those Soul Charge plays. You've got the Digger, the Gold Sarko, and of course you've got the Upstart Goblins, because it is a deck where you want to have as few cards in the deck as possible. He main decks 1 MST. I think he was anticipating taking on a deck that would have Vanity's Emptiness, and he'd want to be able to dig further down in order to put that on the board. It's just a nice thing to have in the main deck, or he wants to not have to dig as far down to get his Phoenix Wing Blind Blast. Sorry about that. And then of course you've got the Vanity's Emptiness, which is good against the mirror match. But it did help him game 1 of the finals as well. This card is probably the only card that he has really set up for the mirror match in this deck, and once again, it's amazing against any deck that's going to be trying to put Soul Charge on the board. And then you've got the double Skill Drain, which is good against everything except the mirror match, essentially. And then you've got the double Wing Blast, and of course, Torrential. The side deck I also found interesting. Of course, you got to finish off the MSTs. Got that triple Max C for the mirror match. Double DD Crow is huge. If you can DD Crow a monster like a Dragon Ruler when your opponent goes for it, then that's out of the way. You don't have to worry about it anymore until your opponent plays Burial. But it stops a lot of plays. It can stop plays with Gundy. It stops plays with which is a ton of other decks. If you're playing against Madolches, they have a monster in the graveyard. You can DD Crow when they summon the Hoot Cake, and then that Hoot Cake is dead. Just crazy stuff like that. Twister for another out to Vanity's Emptiness, and then the Skill Drain and the triple Ice Hand, triple Fire Hand. Once again, this is one of the things that really tips me off that he was not playing for the mirror match. He was expecting to see a lot of matchups where he would have to play defensively before he could put monsters on the board. The really nice thing about these guys is they add up targets for Tidal and for Blaster to banish to summon themselves. This is really amazing versus the Evil Swarm matchup, especially if they've got a large back row and you set the Ice Hand and they attack into it. You can use the Ice Hand to hit the back row, and then you can summon the Fire Hand and then attack into Ophion. Just crazy shenanigans you can get with those cards. The extra deck is fairly self-explanatory once again. The only real difference is that he does not have the Draglon or the Gaia Dragon, but he does have Black Rose and Leo, which are both better outside of the mirror match than they are than other cards that he could have chosen. So that's the 2 final decks from ARGCS Richmond. I absolutely love Dragon Ruler, so I absolutely love this deck. Meanwhile, I hope you guys liked this video. If you did, hit that thumbs up button. If you didn't, let me know why in the comment section below. And of course, subscribe for more decks, discussion, analysis, and general Yu-Gi-Oh! Shenanigans. Thank you guys for watching Yu-Gi-Oh! And Business Casual. I'm your host, the RJB0, and I gotta jet. See you guys.